¿Qué hubo, Lucha Libre fans? This is Indy Handshake, edición de Lucha Libre. I'm Jesus Cruz, and today I'm being joined by Necrosis. How you doing, Necrosis?
Doing good, doing good.
¿Cómo andas with this COVID situation? You guys are good? Family's good?
Family's good, just living through it day by day, trying to get through it more than anything, just trying to make the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, congratulations. I know you recently became a father.
Yeah, recently, 4 months ago, yesterday, as of this recording, the baby girl turned 4 months.
Okay. And how's that been? Been getting any sleep?
First month, yeah, because, the mother paid leave, so she was the one staying up. But as of late, she's been getting more used to regular people sleeping hours. So, yeah, I haven't been sleep deprived as much as other people.
Gotcha. Yeah, man. I remember when I had my kid, he was pretty easy. So I was lucky in that respect. So for the people that might not know you, tell us where you're from and originally where your family's from.
So originally I was born in I won't call it a small town, it's more of a city in real nearby Mexico City called Cuernavaca. It's in the state of Morelos. That's where my family's from, my parents, with the exception of my dad, who's from Guerrero. But yeah, that's where I originated from before immigrating here to the United States.
And where did you immigrate to? What area?
We immigrated when I was 4 years old. We immigrated to Stockton. So that's where we've been the past 17 years. That's where we've been the past 17 years. Stockton, California.
Nice. Stockton's kind of the home of the Diaz brothers.
Yeah, they're very, very much popular around here. They very much represent the attitude of many of the Stockton civilians.
Yep, the Diaz brothers UFC. And I know you borrowed something from, was it Nick Diaz?
Nick Diaz, yeah. He's the one that does the slap, right? No, Nate. Nate's the one that does the slap.
I think they both do, don't they? Nate. No, Nate. Yeah, you're
Whichever
right.
one's the most successful of the two, he's the one that popularized it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a slap, but I call it the K-block slap because it's the street I grew up in. It's a very ghetto street, so that's why they call it the K-block. It's actually called Kelly Drive.
Got it. I ended up doing the Diaz brothers tried to do their own MMA promotion. I don't know if you remember that. They're called what are they called? I forgot what it was, but they hired a group that I work with to do their video production, and it was insane. I mean, it's whatever you imagine a Diaz event being like. It was late. There was like fights in the crowd. Nate was one of the ones that started one of the fights in his own promotion.
Yeah.
I think it was called War.
Damn, so it was like a lucha show?
Yeah. No, it was pretty intense. But anyways, going back to you, how did you get hooked in lucha libre or pro wrestling?
So what happened was, I can't remember the story because according to family, I was 10 months old. Originally, they took my older brother to see the wrestling event, but he fell asleep. According to both my parents, at 10 months, I was just looking straight forward at the ring, not missing a beat on the action, and eventually that stuck because I rewatched like old baby videos that I don't remember, but I'm like a year old already counting to 3, playing with the action figures and all that. So I won't necessarily be able to recall which wrestler got me hooked at first, but I do know, as far as family tells me, I've been hooked since 10 months old.
Okay. And then as you grew up, as you got a little older, who were your favorites at the time?
So at the time, obviously, I was more on the technical side with the exception of Psychosis, but that was a real mind. It messed with my mind a lot because I didn't know there was 2 of them when I was a kid. But aside from Psychosis, the original one, Nicho, it was Rey Mysterio when he first debuted in WWE because he was like the only masked guy that I could remember at the time. Jeff Hardy a lot just because I liked the whole no caring attitude. And back in Mexico, actually, one of my favorites was kind of indifferent to him now, but as a kid, Máscara Sagrada. I was a real big fan of Máscara and Mascarita Sagrada because, I thought Mascarita was a little kid when I was a kid, so I was like, I could do this. But eventually I noticed he never grew. But yeah, those 4, those 5, Psychosis, Rey Mysterio, Jeff Hardy, Máscara Sagrada, and Mascarita Sagrada.
Speaking of Psychosis, I'm wearing a t-shirt that I know you like to give me shit for.
Oh, yeah, the OG shirt you never changed. But yeah, that's the OG Psychosis right there, Nicho.
Yeah, it's like you always wear that fucking shirt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever get to, speaking of Máscara Sagrada, because I know he stayed in Stockton for a while, like years later. Did you ever get to meet Máscara Sagrada?
Yeah, I actually worked a show with him. It wasn't a very good show, but it was a show with him.
Facebook show?
It was would you repeat that?
Was it the Facebook show?
It was no, well that one too, but no, the first show I ever met him was for a very infamous promotion called Dulce Diamante, and that was actually my second show ever here in the States. And yeah, I met him. I was like, that was pretty cool. Pretty, I would say surreal, but I mean, I wasn't surprised given how long he hasn't been in the spotlight.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was actually pretty cool to meet him, regardless of that. So it was
Yeah, no, he
cool
was
opportunity.
always a treat to watch when I was younger. Shit, the movies he did with Octagon too were like badass. When you were a kid, you watched those. And so
Yeah.
I got to meet him in Stockton. One of my buddies, Golden Lion, put a show on, and Mascara was in the main, and so we got to hang out. We
Yeah.
did interview at Univision, and he was cool. He moved a lot slower, and
Oh yeah, it was.
that just it
Yeah, kind of
completely.
depressed. I remember at that show it was him, Pirata Morgan, uh, Payaso del Rodeo. We all know that guy. And then I forgot who else was in the match, but the highlight was because you could see from the backstage area, you could see the match. And I remember he was doing a spot where he was gonna baseball slide to the outside of the ring. But what's funny is like his ass, like his actual ass, like his butt was like so big. He was baseball sliding out, but he got caught in the bottom rope and he couldn't finish the baseball slide out. That people started cracking up. I was like, man, that's just.
He got that booty.
He did, man. He got caught. Like he because the slide itself, he was sliding very smoothly, and all of a sudden he just got caught by the rope.
Yeah.
His ass just blocked it, and I was like, fuck, dude.
Dude, that's when you need to start doing twerking videos to make money with something.
During
So
this pandemic, I believe it.
I know, right? So okay, so you watch wrestling, since you were 10 months old. What made you, or how did you get the urge to actually train, and where did you start training?
So what gave me the urge was well, for being part of a Mexican family with Mexican cousins, similar situation to me. They all were born in Mexico, immigrated here. All of their favorite sport was soccer, and I just couldn't get into soccer. But I really liked wrestling, and I saw them always playing soccer all the time. But I can't wrestle if I'm a kid. So that kind of got to me that I really wanted to do it, and they all really wanted to do it too. But eventually they try to look at it from a more quote unquote realistic standpoint. Where they're going to try to just go for a regular career path. But for me, I was like, no, I'm going to prove everybody wrong. Eventually, when we visited Mexico in the holidays, like December, January, we went to a arena called Arena Isabel, where they had the CMLL guys in the main events. And there was no guardrails. So during intermissions and stuff like that, if you were fast enough, you could get to the ring. Once I got in the ring, I felt that ropes. I'm like, oh man, I really want to do this. Like I couldn't help but want to do it. And yeah, so eventually I started training. So when I started looking for schools here in the United States, there's a bunch of names, and I'm not talking bad about any of them, but the prices were pretty outrageous. Whether it was APW or BTW or Revolution, to name a few. I noticed a lot of thing was the down payment. There's always a down payment for these schools at the time, because I was like 12 years old at the time looking for a school, and it was like ridiculously expensive. The down payment on top of the monthly dues, on top of all these things, and there was lucha schools, I'm assuming, at the time. But the thing about a lot of the lucha guys are they promote their schools on Facebook, and obviously I didn't have those guys added on Facebook at the time, so all I could find was whatever popped up on Google. So it was like ridiculously expensive. So what turned out to be cheaper was I could buy a plane ticket to Mexico. I could stay there for about 2 months in the summers, and then I would train in my hometown of Cuernavaca, Morelos. I trained in lucha first, and the dues on top of the plane ticket, on top of what I paid to stay there, on top of the meals and all that. Well, I mean, on top of what my parents paid, because I was 13 years old. It was still a lot cheaper than training here in the States, so I was very, very fortunate for that until eventually I started driving and being able to afford rides. And my good friend Diablo Azteca was training out in Los Baños, and then I went there. And then from there, I just started making connections all over the place. But yeah, I started originally in Cuernavaca, Morelos.
What was your trainer's name again?
Eddie Cruz.
Eddie Cruz.
Very local, famous locally. Very, very skilled. Made me lose a lot of fear for a lot of things. Very, very talented guy. Saludos para Eddie Cruz.
Un saludo para el tocayo de apellido, Eddie Cruz. I'm Jesus Cruz. That's probably my uncle, fool. I don't know.
Probably, man. He's
But
very.
you were talking about down payments for wrestling schools. I was trying to think of what we were charging for Arena Hayward, dude. And I think our down payment was just you down, fool.
Pretty much, man. We'll get to that soon, but yeah, once I got to Arena Hayward, I was like, oh, this is how most schools should be.
Yeah, I mean, I understand some, the schools that charge a lot, down payment because that's what they do for a living,
Yeah.
So they have to, and insurance and the building and all that. But, a lot of people think like, oh, okay, you go to a reputable school, pay a lot of money, even if you do finish the course, your classes, however long it takes you, it doesn't guarantee you a spot.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't guarantee that you're going to be good. It doesn't guarantee you anything. So, just because the price is high doesn't mean that the school is, good.
Yeah, it's like Roland Alexander on Beyond the Mat, where he's like, I can't guarantee you anything other than an education on professional wrestling.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had students at Hayward that paid for the whole year, whatever full amount, and they never even debuted because they weren't ready.
Damn, dude, I think they paid more than I did.
Yeah.
More on time, I mean, not more money, but yeah.
Yeah. What would you say are the difference, the biggest differences between getting trained in Mexico versus getting trained in the States?
Well, primarily is in Mexico, you work the right, and the States, you work the left. And in Mexico, it's a little bit more flashy moves rather than showing the physical aggression. Because in Mexico, I noticed you do a lockup, and it's a little softer. And then you go into a transitional move, which is usually the látigo. And usually you just like slap the hand out of the way, do it. Or even if you just want to go into a side headlock, you just pop the arms off and then you lock it in. I noticed when I came to the States, I trained a little bit in lucha in the States in Los Baños, but when I started training with Jason Styles at Arena Hayward, I noticed that I would do that. He's like, he said, I fucking hate that. You just pull the guy in, there's more, not to talk bad about lucha because it is my favorite style, but I noticed in the States there's a sense of more realism rather than just flashy, get through with the sequence. So I'm very thankful I learned that from American. But yeah, that's the biggest difference aside from working different sides. Is one's more flashy, the other one's just more with a purpose of showing realism, aggression, and psychology. That's just modern lucha though, because when I watch old lucha videos from like the Dias of the Coliseo and stuff like that, Toreo de Cuatro Caminos, there was a lot more realism and less flashy. But based on the way things are done in modern times, that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, one of the pet peeves that I have, and I know a lot of trainers like Jason have, is the Irish whip. The Mexican Irish whip is like barely touching you and just barely.
Yeah.
They're barely slapping you in the back and like boom. I'm so fucking strong that I just pull
you
in the corner with this.
Yeah.
Whereas Jason would teach the whole close the gate, pull through.
Yeah.
Close the gate. Also rainbowing. Clotheslines are I hate that.
Yeah, I had that problem until Jason corrected me. I'm not saying I have the best clothesline in the game, or at least the best missed clothesline, but he definitely made me feel like a lot better because I watch old matches of myself before training with Jason and after, and I definitely feel a lot more polished in that regard.
So I totally skipped this part. Usually I wanted to start these podcasts with kind of a story or kind of how we met. And the first time I remember meeting you, it was at an Arena Hayward show. I believe it was a fundraiser?
Tribute show, or fundraiser, yes, for one of the wrestlers whose kid passed away.
Yeah, their kid got murdered, and we did a fundraiser for him. And I remember the match was already set, and you had come in, and it's like I had nowhere to put you.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know you at all. I knew you were training with Máscara Infernal in them in Los Baños, but other than that. But I remember, we brought you in, and I think you did one. You came out as like a manager or something.
A second, yeah. But I mean, I got away with a lot more than a manager should. But yeah.
I think you did a suicide dive.
I did a I actually did a springboard crossbody into the ring, and then I did a pop-up Rana, and then I did a suicide dive.
Okay.
So I got a lot more in than I should have. It was a very who was in the match? It was Máscara Infernal, Agramon,
Capirucho, I think.
and Dragar. Yeah, Capirucho and Dragar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Capirucho was something else that match.
What was your what did you think about Arena Hayward when you came in?
It was a lot more professional than where I was. Not to talk bad about the other guys, you know. I love Capirucho to death, but he wasn't necessarily the best promoter. At the time when I met him, he actually trained very hard, but as a promoter and running a show, I was like, man, I thought I was in like way bigger leagues. And I, to this day, I still feel like it is a bigger league because it's more organized and stuff, you know. I was like, this is where I want to be in terms of my next step towards where I want to be at the end. But I was like, okay, this is the next step I need to take. I just need to wait a few more times to save up a few money and be able to afford the drive to and back from Stockton to Hayward.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, and you were. I always remember you because you were one of the guys that would show up all the time. You know, whether it be a seminar, you were at all the seminars. You were there, 2-3 times a week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and it showed the progress. Was showing because you were training with Jason Styles, and you were also training with our guest trainers like Meteoro and Skyde, super crazy guys like that.
Yeah, no, yeah, I remember those times. It was pretty intense on Sundays where I'd pull double duty on class.
Yeah, you and Boone, man. Boone would
Yeah.
4 hours of training.
Yeah, man, took up the whole day, and then we'd still go to whatever restaurant it was you guys wanted to go to after training. So
it was probably the Mexican. We always end up at the spot called the Mexican.
And Sundays were always away from home at that time.
Yeah. So the name and the gimmick, Necrosis. What does Necrosis mean, and how did that come about?
Necrosis is when you die from lack of blood in the organs, and you just like start decaying and stuff like that. The name came from. So I'm very much into not as much as I used to be as a youngster, but when I was younger, I used to be into thrash metal a lot, like just basic thrash metal. Like it was my favorite genre, and I always liked to find new bands. And there was a band from Chile called Necrosis. Eventually I Googled the definition of the word. I saw they made an appearance on Sábado Gigante, and all that. So I was like, okay, that's a pretty fucking badass name, I want to use it. And that's pretty much where it came from. There's not much deepness to it. It's just I liked how it sounded. I needed something short that could be like easily pronounced by announcers both in Spanish and English. I liked it, and then I just was like, all right, I'm gonna roll with it. It's dark. It's not too dark. It could be, good guy, bad guy. I was like, I like it. I love it.
So it was between necrosis and anemia. And we're talking about blood related.
Man, when I first started, yeah, you could
have worked, fool. Anemic.
When I first started, you could have called me that. I was very anemic when I started. No, I wasn't anemic, but I looked anemic, is what I'm trying to say.
One of my favorite heckles from the crowd for you was like, "Cállate, pinche Thalia."
Oh yeah.
Thalia is a soap opera singer, soap opera star / singer from Mexico. Just because they have long hair. Basically, any luchador that has long hair, they'll call him Thalia, Gloria Trevi.
Oh yeah, it's very common amongst long hair, whether it's real hair or not. If you have long hair on your mask, it's game over for you. That's your nickname until someone else comes in.
Yeah, that I don't know. As simple as it sounds, that always cracks me up.
Oh yeah.
So being bilingual, and then can you think of a story where being bilingual in wrestling was very helpful?
For me,
is helpful.
It's always been helpful for me in the sense that I can work both shows. Like if there's an American show, I'll have no problem working an American guy. If there's a lucha show, I have no problem working either or. But it's also I notice it's also very beneficial when they bring in an international star from Mexico and they want him to work an American that doesn't speak a lick of Spanish. For example, I remember translating a match for Super Crazy and Scotty Ringer. And I remember before Super Crazy knew I was there, he was just losing his shit because he's like, I don't know how to communicate and anything like that. And then I was like, no. And I think either you or Jason told him I could translate.
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah, and then I translated, and like Super Crazy was giving me like these huge thank yous, and I'm like, dude, it's okay, you don't have to worry about it. But I noticed it's like it's beneficial in terms of everything, and not just for Super Crazy, but I've had to do it for like local guys and stuff like that. You know, and it feels very nice to be able to like do that as opposed to if I wasn't there, the guys would just have to go out there and fucking balls to the wall, try to do it however they could.
You mentioned that you like Psychosis because of his selling, and I don't think a lot of, especially in lucha libre, I don't think a lot of the people that get into training pay attention to stuff like that. Like I've noticed a lot of students that we had, they just watched, they're hardcore lucha libre fans, and they like the guys that they like, but I don't think they pay attention of that stuff. They're like, oh, I like him because he's a badass. You know, he always wins, or you know, he does high flying. I don't think they actually take the time to see, okay, who's selling, who's really good technical wise.
Yeah, no, I definitely like. I mean, once I got through the phase, and I like, okay, it's always talked about how, yeah, if you're the flashy guy who's doing the flying moves, the crowd's gonna love you. But if you're the base or the guy taking the moves, and you do it safely, and you make the other guy look good, back when you get to the dressing room, the other guys are gonna appreciate you just as much as the fans appreciate the other guy, and it's gonna give you a good reputation in terms of you might not get booked because you're very famous for what you do on the outside, but what you do in terms of what matters on the inside, promoters are going to hear like, okay, that guy's safe, that guy knows how to make guys look good, let me bring him in, and then that's just how you get out there. So I always look more for those details because it helps out a lot.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a lot of promoters that think that way of why they bring back guys.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I think, there were some promoters in the Bay Area that do pay attention to stuff like that. I think other promoters are more like, who can I bring in cheaper?
Yeah.
Let me bring a cheaper guy versus a guy that, actually worked the crowd, actually, did this and that.
Yeah, but mostly I'm referring to promoters that matter. The other ones, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not really interested in working those types of shows. But the promoters that matter, the ones that actually take this business seriously, I'm like, those are definitely the guys I want to work for, and there's no better way to impress them than to show them that as professional as they are promoting wise, I intend to be just as professional when it comes to doing my job in the ring.
Gotcha. So before the COVID situation happened, were you working pretty regularly, either lucha or other types of promotions? American promotion, I would say.
To an extent, because at the time my daughter was about to be born, like 2 months before this whole COVID thing happened. But before my daughter and all that, yeah, I was working pretty regularly, whether it was a promotion like Revolution or California Championship Wrestling, which is Jason Styles' new promotion. Or not that new, they just completed a year in February, but
yeah, him in Máscara Infernal.
Máscara Infernal, and then there was one in Fresno that I worked called Blacklist. It's not very big, but they're a good group of people. They treat me with respect. They always pay on time and everything, and they never pair me up with anyone that I don't feel comfortable working with.
Yeah.
So I definitely got to give them a lot of thank yous for that, because back then when I would work other promotions, they'd be like, you can work this guy, and I'm like, do they train? And then but yeah, it was mostly those three: California Championship Wrestling, Revolution, and Blacklist as of recently. I can't think of many that I worked other than that, just because a lot of American promotions don't necessarily like to book lucha guys.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point, is that it's a shame that a lot of times luchadores get looked over for tournaments or shows. There's some promotions that are drawing well, and they only book luchadores when they book a Cinco de Mayo or in Mexican Independence show day.
Yeah.
Show. It's like, oh shit, now you need guys, now you want to.
Yeah, and I get it from the language barrier standpoint, but there's no reason you can't have the guys just, work with each other, the luchadors and stuff.
Yeah, and I think guys like you and Diablo Azteca are kind of going to come in a new wave in the Bay Area lucha scene, because they are going to see that you guys can work.
Yeah.
both styles. Before this, it was, guys like Chicano Flame, Golden Lion that were working Americans, and Roquero del Diablo.
Yeah.
When I first brought him in 2003, it was a shock to him. Not a shock, but it's like, oh shit, now I got to work with Americans if I want to get looked at.
Yeah. No,
And
yeah, definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, nowadays it's either just they only book him for a Cinco de Mayo show, or they think it's pretty simple to just put a white guy under a mask and like, pretend to be a luchador.
and there are some American wrestlers that have donned a mask
Oh
that
yeah,
good,
they
that
take it
were good and
seriously.
actually respected the business. But it's like that road trip that you and me and Diablo Azteca
Oh, Las Vegas, yeah.
to Las Vegas, man. Like I was looking at their show and it's like, it's just a white dude wearing a mathematical mask,
Yeah. And
and it's like, dude, this is disrespectful. It's
oh, very much so. Yeah, those are the types I'm referring to. Because I know there is a few, not to call them out by their skin color, but American, American guys that are wear masks, but they take it seriously. There was Christian Crusader, there was Leon Acusa, and if I remember any other, I know you knew a guy named Flaco Loco.
Flaco Loco's Mexican, but guys like Wildstorm, Kid Omega.
Oh yeah, Wildstorm.
I'm actually gonna have them. I plan on having all of those guys on here because I've known them forever.
Yeah, but they all respected the mask, is what I'm getting
Yeah,
to.
exactly. They appreciate lucha libre, and and you can tell in their training and their moves and how they entertain the crowd that they
They all
really.
use their own mask. They didn't just find some mask, whether it be on eLucha or at a flea market, from already established wrestlers and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. So far, what has been, well, not so far, but your most memorable match, good and bad. You can start with the bad one.
The bad one wasn't not to like save myself, but it wasn't necessarily my fault because I didn't really do anything wrong in that match. But I didn't do anything wrong at all. It was just a really bad match that killed the crowd, even though it was already kind of a shit show. But it was me and Super Capirucho. And at the time when I was training in Los Baños, we had a pretty good group. We had a Massacre Infernal, Super Capirucho, Diablo Azteca, and that's about it. There was a guy named Zodiaco who wasn't necessarily good when it came to matches, but for training, it was a very solid class. It was like a fucking Sky seminar, basically. But eventually, some guy named Sean Gunn came along, and he brought his students. And not to rag on anybody, but they weren't very good. Not all of them, but some of them weren't very good. There was one standout who I have to give a shout out to. It was Alpha Zoe, who ended up making better things for himself than what was going on at the time. But aside from that, they weren't very good, especially when it came to lucha. But either ways, they just got on shows, especially because it was a lucha show, and you show up. You could even be half trained for all they care. But if you show up, you're white and you're American, they're like, oh, American, we got to book that guy now because American, why not? So it's me and Super Capirucho, and we worked these two Sean Gunn students. I worked one. I didn't have any problem with the language barrier. We got through it no problem. And Super Capirucho had the other one for a spot, but neither knew any Spanish at all. And I tried my best to translate. But there's moves you can't necessarily translate, like a jarocha.
Yeah.
You can't translate that. So the kid just forgot his whole spots, and like Capirucho would go for a jarocha and would barely tap the guy, and the guy would just freeze, and then he'd just fall out of nowhere, and it was just bad, man. Like every move they tried was messed up, and the crowd noticed, and they'd call them out for it. It was too hard to save. It was very difficult to make look believable.
And you would think, if that's happening in a match, especially the vet guys, just take it home, man. Just let's kill this thing, but let's put this thing out of its misery. But that's never the case.
Yeah, it didn't help that the referee had a Perros del Mal shirt on. But...
Oh shit! Did he have a mask on too?
Nah, I was the promoter, man. It was a very famous rodeo clown,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So okay, what about a good one?
Good one was
memorable match. Good.
My first match I felt was memorable and good, but it was my first match here was the Diablo Azteca. But eventually I had better matches. It's always gonna hold a special place. But I always have good matches with him, so I'm gonna have to say a different person was when I had a match with
Damn,
SoCal Crazy.
he chose you as his worst one. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I wouldn't put it past him to do it as a rib, but I did it. My best match that in my opinion, that I liked the most was with SoCal Crazy.
Okay, that was pretty recent, right?
Yeah, very recent because it was. I looked at it as not like a huge test, but as a test to like, okay, if I could put on a good match with him and keep up the same pace as him, that means I can hang with a lot of people down, whether it be in SoCal or NorCal. Like I can hang and I can put on that indie-rific match that a lot of promoters are looking for now. And what made me feel better about it was he was coming into the match with an injured shoulder, and I was coming into it with like some really badly like bruised ribs to the point where like if I even flexed a little bit, it would just like kill me. And the fact we were able to work through those setbacks, and still put on a great match. I was like, okay, I feel great about this. It was a great match, and I'm ready to hang with more names whenever this pandemic's over.
What is your favorite road story? Like a road trip,
Oh man, we had this
pulling up to an event, whatever.
terrible road trip to Las Vegas. It was with Jesus Cruz. No, I'm kidding. It was me, Diablo Steca, a guy named Cazador del Alma, and Vaquero Fantasma. And it was usually when we would work Vegas, it would be weekends, so we would just stay the day after, no big deal. But for some reason, the people down there decided to run 4th of July, and it was a weekday, and then there was going to be work the day after, so we all had to go back to our day jobs after the show. So I met up at Diablo's house at like 6 a.m., which means I had to wake up at 5, and then the other two guys, they had to probably wake up at 4, to get there at 6. We go there, and he's cool to me, I don't, no beef with him, but Vaquero was just in a shit mood the whole trip. Like he wanted to stop every like minute or so for a bathroom break, and then we were about to be late because of him, because he kept wanting to stop, and then he's like, "Are we not gonna stop for breakfast?" And I was like, "Oh, brother," I was just in the back seat like, "Ah, man," and then. I remember Diablo is like, because he keeps on playing, like, "I'm so hungry, man. I gotta eat something before the show." And Diablo out of nowhere, he just pulls out this huge bag of almonds and raisins, and he just sets it in the middle. And Vaquero just looks at him like, "All right, this is gonna be one of those fucking trips, like." He's pretty much
Shut up, fool.
he just shut him up there, and then we get there, and they have us booked. They had me booked once, which was whatever. I had a good match. But they have Vaquero booked twice, and Vaquero was like, "So am I gonna get paid double or what's up?" And we're like, "Ah, shit." And then he has the match, whatever. That's a different problem for the promoter and everything. He ends up shooting on some students of the promoter and stuff, but he has the match, and then we really want to go back home. And we thought we were done by the early point, but then they put Diablo in the semi-main event, which is because it was a festival. So first match was like at 2, then there was one at 4, then at 6, then at 8, and then at 9 to finish it off. Diablo was in the 8 p.m. one. By the time he got done with the match, by the time he got done getting dressed, we were leaving Las Vegas at like 10 p.m. And it was just, we were tired at that point. And then here goes Vaquero again, like, "Hey, I'm hungry. I'm trying to eat." And then, we got a Cazador driving this time. We're all just in a very like grumpy mood at that point, and we go to a Taco Bell. And everyone's in a grumpy mood except for Cazador, and we get to the Taco Bell drive-thru, and the lady's like, "Welcome to Taco Bell. How are you doing? What can I get for you?" And fucking Cazador says, "Oh, I'm doing well. How are you doing?" Without ordering anything yet. He's just like, "I'm doing well. How are you doing?" And like fucking Diablo was just so grumpy from being tired at that point. He's like, "Fuck, dude, save some pussy for the rest of us. Just fucking order already." Order on your own time later, because we were all just trying to go home, and we're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, dude, just fucking order already. We're trying to go already." And then they got Vaquero and Cazador's order, but they forgot ours. They didn't give us ours, and we're like, "Fuck it, we're just going home. We'll just starve on the way home."
Damn.
Yeah, that trip was brutal, man, because I had to go to work the day after, and I was just like.
And I know Diablo Azteca has a very strict rule about not stopping.
Yeah.
When going on road trips, I know because that was the road trip you're talking about. That was the show after the one you and us went to, right? I think so.
Yeah, it was the July after
Yeah.
the April show that was on WrestleMania weekend. That was a pretty cool trip. And then followed by that, I was like, oh, bro, this is brutal. Like,
Yeah. Tell me a favorite shady promoter story. A time that you've been either gypped out of pay, or the show was just whack, or the promoter was just like, character.
So I'll do one for
You
Lucha.
can't say Arena Hayward, fool.
No, Arena Hayward was fucking great. I always loved hearing. I wish I could do more for you, kid. No, I'm kidding. There's two. There's one in Lucha, and then there was one in American. One was just the guy being too unorganized to the point where it was still salvageable, and then another guy was a guy just being way more disorganized to the point where you're like, how the fuck does this guy fucking pay bills at home? How does this guy function and shit? But there was one, rest in peace, there was a guy named Carlos Pinales, and we
I
worked.
don't mean to laugh at the rest in peace. I just
Oh no, I know.
the second story I'm gonna hear about him today.
He was a character. He was a hell of a guy. As a person, he wasn't terrible. Just as a promoter, he maybe should have had like a right hand man or something. But he would always be the type to forget to book a referee for some reason. Eventually, we brought our own, and it was at this time, eventually I think we brought our own referee. No, my bad. Sparky brought the ring, Sparky Ballard. So Sparky was like, all right, I brought my ring, and then Pinales is like, I need a ref. So then Sparky just Iron Man the whole show, whatever. And it was me and Diablo teaming up with this very, 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 very talented lady named Zaida. And we worked against NC-17, Jason Styles and Ryan Boncool, and they were with Wanda.
Oh yeah, I was there. Yeah.
No, this was a different show. But
oh, okay. For some reason I remember that match.
I remember you being there. That was the case. So we have the match, right? We had it set to one fall. Mexico versus USA. The crowd was popping. We went over in one fall, but in the middle of the matchup, promoter Pinales walks up to Sparky, and he pulls on his pants. And Sparky's like, "What the fuck?" And he turns. He's like, "What?" And he's like, Pinales like, "Tell him to make it 2 out of 3 falls in the middle of the match." And fucking Jason Styles is like, "Fuck that, we're taking that shit home." And we finish the match, we take it home. The crowd fucking loves it. Mexico goes over. Yada yada yada. We go to the back, and Pinales is just pissed. He's like, "Why didn't you do what I said? I said 2 out of 3." And then he told Jason, he's like, "You're very unprofessional." And Jason just fucking lost it. He started cursing him out. They were in the dressing room, and he like cursed him out to the point where like Pinales was like backpedaling to the outside of the dressing room to where Jason followed him. And he was about to beat his ass until security showed up and stuff like that. And then Pinales was making it seem like he wasn't going to pay us, even though we didn't do anything wrong. It was his beef was with Jason, whatever. They made it seem like he wasn't going to pay anyone, not just us, but everyone on the whole show, to the point where by the end of the show, he was just walking around, no one could find him. I remember Kakamang was there, and he was like telling me like he was actively looking for him the whole show. No one could find him until eventually he went to the dressing room thinking no one was there. And all the guys that he flew in from Mexico just surrounded him until he just paid everyone up, But yeah, that was him, as shady as he was. And then because he knew he had the money from sponsors, he just didn't want to give it up. But another case of a guy who didn't have the money but said he did was, I won't say any names, but there was a promotion in Pittsburgh. I remember you went to a show. I think I know you know which promotion I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he would always. His was simple, he would run the show, and at the end of every show, he'd be like, I'll get you the money on PayPal next time. I promise, I got you. And I was just like, oh hell, dude. Like, if you don't have the money, don't run the show, dude. It's like, it's all good. Just don't run the show, man. Or be honest with me and tell me what you can do, But I'm expecting a certain amount of money, and you only give me a fifth of what I'm expecting, and I'm like, oh man, bro. Save yourself the pity and all that.
Yeah, no, that happens a lot, especially in Lucha Libre.
Oh yeah.
In a lot of these little fly-by-night promotions or whatever. What has been the craziest fan interaction that you've ever had whether it be someone that legit wanted to beat your ass or a fan getting in the ring or.
It's not very long. I just got, I don't want to say groped because I don't, I'd have to look up the actual definition of the word, but I remember I got, there was a fan who copped a feel of me in the middle of the picture, and I was like, oh, I haven't had anything too crazy happen to me other than that fan. I was just posing for the picture, whatever. And I remember I found the picture on Instagram. I'm like, when you look up the location, like it was the Sahara ice hockey rink in Las Vegas, whatever. And I saw that exact same person. I was like, that motherfucking pro. I was just posing, and all of a sudden I just feel like this fast but very strong squeeze, like 3 squeezes, and I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm just like, God damn. But no, nothing too crazy other than that in terms of fans. Like, no, it just I remember one time it was a bunch of fans. We got done with a match and we were just trying to go to the dressing room, because we were done. And the fans just wouldn't let us go. It was me and Diablo, and we worked Christian Crusader and a guy named RJ Remington, same old story again, Mexico, USA. Mexico goes over, the crowd's really happy. Autograph, picture. And we're trying to go, but they're just like creating a wall. And the promoter just gets pissed because, he wants us to go back. He wants to start the next match already. And we're like, dude, we're trying. And, he gets on the microphone. But nothing crazier than that, really.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
No. I've been very fortunate compared to other people.
Yeah. When was the last time that you were surprised by someone that you worked? Like you've never worked with them before, you weren't sure that how the match was going to come out, and like you were genuinely surprised.
There was this one guy, Mantis Lee, and it was me and Diablo. Man, so many matches with Diablo. Me and Diablo versus Anarchia and Mantis Lee. And to keep it simple, Mantis Lee has a track record for not having the best of matches. Very nice guy, very nice guy. And we were just expecting, right prepared for the worst and whatnot. But I'll give credit to Diablo, man. He made that guy look like $1 million that day, to the point where someone actually bought his shirt. I was genuinely surprised by that, expecting the worst and getting the best out of it. Another one was, this one was actually good, was the first time I ever worked Jason. I didn't know what to expect because Jason's been around for a while. I just expected whatever he would give me, I'd be happy for. But Jason's like, all right, kid, I'm going to make you look like $1 million. I'm going to sell for you. You're going to tackle me. You're going to do all this. And I'd be like, cool. He's like, what do you want to do? I'm like, oh, I want to do this. He's like, oh, how about you do this? And, he would be very excited to try things with me. And he's like, I appreciate the fact that he doesn't have an ego in terms of when it comes to making a person shine. And, he knows what his purpose is in a match. I always took a lot of that from him and other people around me that, at the end of the day, this isn't 100% real. So it doesn't matter if you end up looking not as strong as you look. Your purpose is to make the best match possible, and your role. So I appreciated that, and it opened my eyes a lot to that. Not everyone's going to be a dick and not give you anything.
No estamos aquí para jugar muñecas.
Oh my God.
Have you ever heard that phrase before?
Yeah, I've heard it, man.
Means we're not here to play with dolls. We're tough. We're supposed to hit each other hard.
So it's meant for shoulder tackle.
Says the guy wearing a bulletproof vest. You can't hurt him.
Especially for chops. Ah, man, I hated that shit.
That's an inside story for another day.
Yeah.
Any embarrassing moments?
You actually witnessed it. It was the Vegas trip. We did WrestleMania weekend, and we were working these very tall twins. They were like very tall, very buff, right? Mm-hmm. And I came up with this really complicated spot for the guy, and it ended with me doing a springboard, kind of like a headbutt, but I do a front flip, and then I land on their shoulder, and I land on my feet. And I was like, if I pull this off, I'm set. The crowd's gonna, and the crowd went crazy. And I was like, yeah, I'm like jumping around, not looking around. And the guy didn't, I'm not blaming on anyone. It was just bad luck. I'm jumping, going back a little bit, and then I just trip on the guy. I fall back and I land on my ass. Like shit. The crowd starts busting up, and I'm like, that could have been a highlight. Like the whole spot could have been a highlight video to upload on Facebook, but that one little part, just ruined it. I was like, man. I just tripped over him. You saw this other one. It was at the Facebook headquarters, Lucha Festival.
Yeah.
It was just my entrance. I went to the apron, I did a springboard into the ring. I got some mad air, and then I landed, and then I crouched, but the padding was kind of loose, so I slipped up on the padding and I started going back, and eventually I almost fell out of the ring. Fell back. My upper half was outside of the ring, and I'm just holding on to the rope for dear life. And yeah, I remember that. And it's usually with high risk spots where I feel the most embarrassment.
Yeah. Going back to with like Diablo Azteca, you guys have a lot of stories, road stories, and a lot of stuff that happened to you guys. Do you feel like you guys are getting kind of pigeonholed into working together? Like, oh, let's just put Necro against Diablo, or put them together. Do you feel like a lot of promoters are do that? Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
At certain shows, we do kind of just like, I remember California Championship Wrestling. Unfortunately, when the show was about to start, the guy who was driving the truck with the ring was late because his truck flipped over and they had to get everything in last minute. So the show started really late, and the whole card, yeah, he lost a finger, and the whole card had to be made on the fly. And we were like 5 minutes from ring bell time, and Jason Styles, who was booking, he's like, Necrosis Diablo, put on a match, and we just made up a match on the fly. So it's beneficial in terms of like when we have to do a match out of nowhere.
You guys
But
know each other.
yeah, but it's mostly just those types of shows, like the hybrid lucha American shows. Outside of that, we don't get booked together that often, but when we do, they still put us in separate matches usually. So we're not too pigeonholed to the point where we're like, and even if we did, we'd know we'd put on a good match, whatever. Especially with Diablo, he likes to get experimental and try a bunch of new things, and I'm usually the guinea pig for those moves. If he doesn't have time to do it at training and he has to do it in a match, he usually likes to use me as like the guinea pig to like, okay, we could do this and this and that. So I never mind working him time and time again because he always has something new in mind that he wants to do. So
Yeah, gotta keep it fresh.
Oh yeah.
Has wrestling ever affected your personal life or your work life, vice versa? I mean, I know right now you have a kid, you were going to school and training at the same time, and wrestling at the same time. So have you ever had like a major event where something you couldn't do something because of the other?
Oh yeah, many. So I'm training at Revolution now. Well, not technically because we can't physically be there, but when I was, my kid was about to be born. But I remember they were gonna do, there was gonna be an action figure thing, but you had to be there to get your action figure, and I couldn't be there because my daughter was being born, so I missed out on that. Other than that, it was usually when I was at Hayward and I was still in high school. Uh, I would go to train in Hayward at like I think it was 8 p.m. when we did Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yeah.
And we train, and then Meteoro or Kid Dragon, they'd want to eat after, and no one was putting a gun to my head like you have to come eat with us. But I was like, I kind of want to hang out with the boys, right?
Yeah.
So I'd go eat at In-N-Out wherever we went, and then I'd still go to the gym after because that's the best time to go in Stockton is because it's empty. And I would get home at like 2 a.m., but I would still have class at like 7:20. And I sometimes I would skip first period because I'm like, I'm too tired, I'm not doing it. But in terms of school, it did affect me a lot there. And then weekends, because that's when most shows happen is weekends. I was so used to, a cousin would do a birthday party for their kid or for themselves, and they'd be like, puro pinche party time, like beers and stuff like that. And I'd be excited, like, oh, hell yeah, cousin, I'm going to be there. But a lot of the times I couldn't go there because I'd be wrestling on weekends, I'd miss out on a lot. And I'd be like, damn, I mean, I get to hang out with the boys in the dressing room, but
Yeah.
one thing is drinking before a match or before you have to go. You can't drink as much because, you have to drive home as opposed to drinking at the party, where you could go all out, have a fun time. Yeah, I've missed out on a lot of birthdays and stuff like that, that I would have liked to attend, and just events, like that. But thankfully, it hasn't affected it to the point where I'm like, struggling in my head to try to juggle things to the point where I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Because there's always been a solution for it, like, nothing too crazy, but yeah.
Have you ever had any injuries, like major injuries through wrestling?
Nothing major, just the usual, bad knees, sprained ankles, hurt shoulder, and, the things that most guys seem to work through, which I think we shouldn't, but I'm guilty as charged because I do the same thing. So nothing major, thankfully, nothing that's taken knock on wood that I have here.
What are some of the biggest opportunities you've had so far in wrestling?
One of them was a tryout for All Japan Pro Wrestling. I didn't get picked, but it felt pretty nice to have Tajiri and Ultimo Dragon watching my match. Not saying, "Hey, stop, you're done." Letting us get through the match and stuff like that. Well, not necessarily the biggest name, like I mentioned, SoCal Crazy. That was just a match that I liked because it was the match I used to prove to myself that okay, I can hang with people. I can hang with the bigger local name. So other than that, nothing too major. Just keep going at it until eventually I do get a huge opportunity that I can brag about, but nothing to brag about yet.
What you'll get there. You definitely will. You're very dedicated student of the game, so I know you definitely will. What does your family think about you doing wrestling? Because especially as young as you got into it, you were still out of high school and into college. Like, did they think it was just a phase or?
So when I started at the age of 13 to train, my mom didn't think I was going to stick through with it. She thought I was going to quit like 2 weeks in or whatever. So because they were very against it, because it was interfering with me at school. Because I'm like, I don't want to do school. I want to be a wrestler. So she was against it, but she thought once I got a taste of it that I was just going to back out of it. And so I went and I stuck with it, the whole 2 months. And my mom was like, oh, damn, now he's going to stick with it. And then we went again next year, and she's like, you can't go train anymore. I'm like, why not? Eventually my uncle snuck me out, and I did train those 2 months, and I had my first match that year. And my mom was like, found out about it. She was mad, but she's like, all right, we'll go. She hated the fact that I was getting chopped up, but once she saw that I was dedicated to it, she accepted the idea, and so did my dad. Skip forward a few more summers, I trained and whatever. Eventually I do have my first match here in the United States at 17. And after that, my mom hates the idea of me taking big bumps and getting chopped and getting beat up, but they're very proud of the fact that I proved them wrong and I stayed dedicated to it, because it shows them that I wasn't just saying it to say it and then I was going to back out of it. So it reaffirmed them. They're very happy for me and they're very supportive. My daughter's mom, my girlfriend, she's very supportive of it. I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive circle, whether it be friends within wrestling or family. I've always had people to keep me from quitting, or just getting jaded of it or getting tired of it.
What does your family think about your drop kicks?
Oh man, at first they probably thought they were shit. Eventually I met Jason Styles, who sort of fixed that problem, and now they're decent, so.
I just fucking with you. Last question. What do you want to get out of this? What are you looking to get out of lucha libre and pro wrestling? Where are you trying to be at?
Primarily, I want to be able to retire with full health. I want to be able to run with my daughter and whatever future kids come the way, pick her up. But I mean, I'm pretty sure that's everyone. But as an end goal to my career in wrestling, I definitely want to get to a stage where I can provide the income necessary to provide for my family while doing something I love, and to be able to retire with enough money to save up. Whether I have to get another job after or not, or a different career, that's fine by me, as long as I saved up enough to where I have enough time to find that career. And because once you're done wrestling and you need to find a new career, you do need some time to find that career. Yeah. So just to be able to provide for it, to be able to feel like I contributed something, whether it be like a big name or just behind the scenes, like, oh, that guy was very solid, so I can't say necessarily a company. I just know I want to be able to make a living off of this, provide with it, be content with where I ended it. I'm not saying I want to be the main event guy, which would be very nice, to be able to be at a WrestleMania or whatever promotion is big at the time, 10 years from now. But, I could be content just being the guy who was hired to make other people look good, as long as I knew my skills were recognized at one point. But yeah, just to be able to provide for the family, be happy, and be able to enjoy my life after wrestling.
Oh, that's good, man. I do remember one of your goals was not sucking.
Yeah, it's still one of the big ones. I never want to get to a point where people roll their eyes.
You'll get there one day. I'm just fucking with you. Yeah, dude, thanks a lot. Necrosis, give a shout out for any of your social media where people could follow you.
Social media, Instagram. I've really been trying to take this one off the ground. Is the word dark _ necrosis on Instagram. Haven't been uploading much. Just when I was starting to upload, the whole pandemic happened, so there isn't much to upload right now. But dark necrosis. Same thing on Twitter. Dark _ necrosis. Facebook. I do not have a fan page, but if you feel free, you can follow Necrosis Black on Facebook. You can follow it. If you send a friend request and I know you, obviously I'm going to accept it. But if you're a fan, feel free to follow. There's no vulgarity. You don't have to feel worried about, being offended. There's nothing political. There's nothing, just straight up wrestling, just straight up business. And yeah, as far as social media, that's it. Just very thankful for the interview.
Yeah, well, good luck, brother. Like I said, you're one of the few dedicated students that I've seen. And when we were doing Renee Hayward for however 2 years, whatever. You always showed up. You were always on time, and you always put not always on time, but but you always put like your best effort, and I really admire that, and that's why I'm also proud to call you a friend. So
yeah.
All right, everybody, thanks for watching Indy Handshake, Edición de Lucha Libre. We'll see you next time. And then I'll play, Pelo Suelto, Gloria Trevi.
Pelo Suelto.